You're now tuned into the cutting edge of anime theory and narrative reimagining. Today's topic: what if Anko trained Naruko? Part 3. This is a continuation of our alternate universe analysis, where unique mentorship reshapes destiny, and unconventional paths reveal hidden potential. Disclaimer: the content on this channel is intended solely for entertainment and discussion purposes. I do not claim ownership of any anime footage featured in this video. All rights and credits belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. Let's begin. Monday. A day often viewed with reluctance by many, no matter the village, city, country, or even universe. Naruko Uzumaki slowly stirred awake, gently brushing away the remnants of sleep as she peered out the window. Rain poured down heavily, and from the sway of the trees, it was clear the wind was just as relentless. And I have my first exam today. She mused inwardly, sighing at the uncooperative weather. Still, there were small comforts, like a warm bowl of her favorite instant ramen. With about an hour before she had to leave, she quickly prepared and enjoyed her breakfast while mentally organizing the day ahead. "What should I bring?" she asked aloud, scanning her small room with focused eyes. She mentally reviewed the upcoming exam and decided it was best to be prepared for anything. She tidied her bed and returned her book on advanced human anatomy to its shelf. Standing before the mirror, she removed her pajamas and inspected the seals on her body. The chakra-weighted gear she had received from Yugao had significantly improved her physical condition. Her toned, agile frame was a result of her diligent training. The seals etched into her skin were modest in complexity: storage seals for weapons like her sword, lightweight chakra weights for fieldwork, and a few experimental ones she was especially proud of. Over the past month, she had immersed herself in the advanced seal theory text given to her by the wise and elderly Hokage. The book's former owner, marked only as MN, seemed to think creatively, something Naruko herself deeply resonated with. From that inspiration, she had devised the concept for her Triune Hunters, and another particularly clever concept caught her attention. While chakra storage seals typically acted as power sources for larger arrays, when applied to a living body, they gradually absorbed and stored chakra. With the right enhancements, these seals could then return the chakra to the body, fully replenished and free from any adverse effects. Unlike chakra pills, this method used her own energy, reducing any potential complications. Naruko's journey into medical studies also led her to begin designing a seal that could convert regular chakra into healing chakra. Although the task proved to be highly complex, the potential was enormous. A playful grin touched her lips, one that might remind someone of her quirky friend Anko, as her eyes settled on a set of specially modified kunai. She had successfully reverse-engineered several seal types from an old blade and applied them to 50 kunai, each enhanced with chakra storage seals charged and ready. These tools would make it even more difficult for opponents to predict her next move. Fuinjutsu, the art of sealing, had opened an entire world of possibilities for Naruko. From everyday enhancements to specialized battlefield tactics, it complemented her growing skills in ninjutsu and kenjutsu. Her taijutsu, although not flawless, had become reliable thanks to her persistent reflex training and her recently perfected radiance field. Combined with her expanding knowledge of anatomy and pressure points, she could now strike with efficiency and precision. Her sensory awareness was honed to such a degree that she could use all 6 senses in battle without becoming overwhelmed. Carefully, she packed the kunai into storage seals on her hands. Her impressive sword, Kubikiri Hocho, wrapped in a durable gray material, was also secured. She ran down her checklist. 2 small pouches with chakra and energy pills, check. 3 compact first aid kits with homemade antidotes and mental energizers, check. Her calligraphy kit, check. 5 Triune Hunter scroll sets, double check. 20 reinforced smoke bombs and 20 enhanced tags, check. 2 200-meter spools of ninja wire, check. Standard weaponry, 50 kunai, 100 shuriken, and 20 senbon needles, check. Vials of sleep and mobility reduction serum, secured. Food and water provisions sealed into scrolls, enough for a full 4-person team for a month, confirmed. Her final addition was her latest innovation, a pair of sleek, black metal bracers with intricate designs. Beyond their tough exterior and defensive capabilities, they held Naruko's proudest invention yet, the Life Seal Array. After 2 months of research and testing, these seals could form a temporary barrier that absorbed incoming chakra and returned it to her purified. There was a limit to what they could handle, but it offered a brilliant balance of offense and defense. Dressing swiftly, Naruko chose a pair of black boots, brown pants, and a light gray shirt. She fastened the small snowflake necklace given to her by Haku beneath her collar, a private keepsake and a symbol of her commitment. Then, she donned her red cloak. She smirked as she chose not to conceal her sword, though it was nearly as tall as she was. Carrying it diagonally across her back made it easier to draw. Looking outside, she admired the rain. She didn't mind the weather, it was calming. During her training, she had discovered by accident that releasing chakra just above her head could repel raindrops, creating a makeshift barrier. She now wondered if it could be adapted into a broader defensive technique. Her confident stride through the nearly empty streets would have drawn attention on a normal day, but the weather had kept most people indoors. Only a few shinobi were visible at their posts. With time to spare, she made her way toward a place that always brought her joy, the Ichiraku ramen shop. Naruko smiled warmly as she approached what she fondly referred to as the best ramen shop in the world. Tucci, the cheerful owner, quickly spotted her. "Hey, Naruko. The usual?" he called out with a grin. "Yep. One of each, please. I've got my exam today," she responded brightly. The Ichiraku family, Tucci and his daughter, Ayame, were two of the few people Naruko trusted unconditionally. They'd seen her sincere smiles, not just the masks she wore for others. Tucci set to work with his usual enthusiasm. Ayame greeted Naruko with a kind hug. "Good morning, Naruko-chan," she said with a gentle smile. "Good morning, Ayame-chan," Naruko replied, returning the gesture. Ayame felt like the big sister Naruko had always wished for, always ready with kindness and encouragement. "Exams today, huh?" Ayame asked with interest. "Yep. The Chunin exams start now," Naruko confirmed. "No wonder the village feels so busy," Ayame mused, tapping her chin thoughtfully. Naruko chuckled. "Don't worry. Whatever surprises are waiting for us, I'll be ready." "Then eat up. We can't let our future Chunin be late," Ayame teased. Naruko finished her 10 bowls of ramen in record time, savoring each bite. After thanking the Ikirakas with a smile and a wave, she stepped back out into the rain, heading toward the academy building, fully prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead. The gentle rain continued to fall as Naruko, a blonde kunoichi with a determined expression, approached the entrance of the building. She spotted her teammates, Sasuke and Sakura, standing just inside. Both wore their usual attire, now shielded by light raincoats. Naruko noticed Sasuke's gloves and the newly forged wakizashi he had recently begun carrying. Though he had yet to fully master its use, some modifications Naruko had made gave it a slight advantage in battle. Sakura, as always, had come well prepared. Naruko observed the utility pouches attached to her belt, alongside neatly organized scrolls in a holster. Naruko mused silently to herself, "They don't prepare like I do. Still, it's an improvement." Without exchanging a word, the trio quietly made their way inside. "You two ready?" Naruko asked calmly as they climbed the stairs toward the second floor. "What do you think, Dobi?" Sasuke replied with a sly grin, resting one gloved hand on his weapon. Sakura simply shook her head at their usual banter. "We're as ready as we'll ever be," Sakura commented. "Let's just hope Naruko doesn't mess up a rule or something." "That'd be the day," Sasuke teased as they bypassed a simple genjutsu on the second floor and moved straight to the third, Sasuke leading, flanked by Naruko and Sakura. As they advanced, they drew a variety of looks, some envious, some curious, and a few indifferent. Just outside the entrance to room 301, they spotted a familiar figure holding an orange-covered book. "Congratulations on making it this far," said Kakashi with his usual eye-crinkling smile. "What do you mean making it?" Sakura asked, puzzled. "It's simple," Kakashi replied. "If even one of you hadn't shown up, your team wouldn't have been eligible. But since you're all here, you've passed the first hurdle." Sasuke and Naruko exchanged a glance and shrugged, while Sakura shot Kakashi a mildly annoyed look. "Well, best of luck in the exams," he added before disappearing in a puff of smoke. Naruko chuckled. "Let's check out the competition." The trio stepped into the crowded classroom with confidence. Instantly, the room fell silent. All eyes turned toward them, and an intense atmosphere filled the space. Sasuke and Sakura didn't flinch, while Naruko, trained to resist such pressure, remained composed. She noticed several familiar faces. "Hey, Naruko," called Kiba with his usual enthusiasm. "Hi, Kiba. Shino. Is Hinata with you?" Naruko asked cheerfully, looking around. "I'm here," Hinata murmured softly as she rose from behind Kiba. "Best of luck with the exams, Hinata," Naruko said with a kind smile, causing Hinata to blush lightly. Meanwhile, Sasuke was dealing with a particularly animated Ino, which Naruko found quite amusing as Sakura's old fangirl side momentarily resurfaced. "You all are rather loud," came a composed voice nearby. Naruko turned to see a silver-haired Jinan wearing glasses and a Konoha forehead protector. He looked friendly enough, though something about him felt unusual. "Why does he remind me of snakes?" Kurama, ever ready to share his thoughts, spoke up in her mind. "You know who smells like snakes? Anko. But he's different. Good instincts, kid." "I'm Kabuto," the boy said politely. "No problem," Naruko replied, eyeing him curiously. "I'm Naruko." "You seem a little older than most," Shikamaru chimed in. Kabuto chuckled. "I've been through this exam a few times." "How many?" Sakura asked, her interest piqued. "This will be my 7th time," Kabuto admitted sheepishly, causing several to raise their eyebrows in disbelief. "Well, I've gathered some data on other teams if you're curious," he offered, revealing a stack of chakra-sensitive cards. These contain profiles on many of the examinees. Sasuke was the first to speak up. "Rock Lee." Shikamaru added, "Gaara from Suna, Sasuke Uchiha, and Uzumaki Naruko." Kabuto scanned the cards. Rock Lee, Konoha Jinan, strong in taijutsu, 25D ranked missions, 12C ranked. No known use of ninjutsu or genjutsu. Teammates, Neji and Tenten. Sensei, Might Guy. Gaara of the Sand, Jinan from Suna. Completed 10C rank and 2B rank missions. Possesses strong control over sand. No recorded injuries or failed missions. Remarkable. Naruko's eyes narrowed as she identified the boy from the back of the room. "That pressure. That one's a Jinchuriki," Kurama noted. "He's housing Shukaku, the one tail. Not a pleasant match." "I see. Well, thanks for the insight, Kurama. You've got the better partner, trust me." Kabuto continued, Sasuke Uchiha, 25D rank, 2C rank, 2A rank missions. Strong in ninjutsu. Holder of the Sharingan. Teammates, Sakura Haruno and Uzumaki Naruko. Uzumaki Naruko, Jinan of Konoha. Completed 25D rank, 2C rank, 3A rank missions. Proficient in ninjutsu, kenjutsu, and fuinjutsu. Wields the Kubikiri Hocho. Impressive record. "Thank you," Naruko replied courteously, though internally she was disturbed. He knows too much. That last detail is supposed to be confidential. This guy's a spy. Choosing to deal with that later, she signaled her team to stay calm and took her seat. Just then, the classroom doors opened, revealing a group of Chunin followed by a man in a long black trench coat. Naruko recognized him immediately, Ibiki Morino, the renowned interrogation expert. With a commanding voice, he declared, "Silence. I'm Ibiki Morino. I'll be your proctor for the first round of the Chunin exams." He explained the rules clearly, 10 questions in an hour. Cheating was not allowed, each wrong answer cost a point, and each caught act of dishonesty cost 2 more. Losing all points would disqualify the team. The final question would be presented with 15 minutes remaining. Naruko frowned as she reviewed the questions. These are far too advanced. This must be a test of information gathering, not knowledge. She began to observe others using subtle techniques to cheat, from mirrored reflections to hidden signals. Using her finely honed chakra control, she tapped into her sensory skills and quietly mimicked the movements of those with the right answers. As time passed, more teams were dismissed. Sakura answered each question confidently, while Sasuke relied on his Sharingan. Naruko, having completed the written section, discreetly left a chakra-inscribed note labeled for Scarface, as a subtle nod to the proctor's reputation, then waited for the final phase. Ibiki then stood. "The last question is optional. If you decline, you leave now, but may retake the exam in the future. However, if you accept and fail, you may never try again." The room buzzed with nervous energy. Many teams began to withdraw. Naruko noticed Sakura and Hinata hesitating. "If Sakura backs out, our whole team is done. And Hinata just needs a push." She stood slowly, drawing attention. Then, placing her hand firmly on the desk, she declared, "I'm not backing down. We've all taken risks to get here, why stop now? Even if I fail, I'll still become Hokage one day." Her words struck a chord. Confidence rippled through the room. Sakura looked reassured. Hinata's hands lowered. Even Ibiki paused, considering her resolve. Finally, the proctor smiled. "Now for the final question." He paused, letting the tension build. "You all pass." The crowd's response was entirely predictable, so Naruko simply tuned it out as Ibiki began his explanation. He spoke about the importance of information gathering and how crucial such skills would be throughout their future as shinobi. Just as he finished speaking, a black cloth suddenly burst through the window, anchored at each corner by 4 kunai, transforming into a dramatic banner that read, "The Great Mitarashi Anko, Proctor of the Second Exam." Right behind the banner, the energetic Anko entered with her usual flair. Naruko had to stifle a laugh at her over-the-top entrance. Most of the other Genin appeared more nervous than amused, and likely with good reason. "What's this, Ibiki? 24 teams? You're going easy on them in your old age," Anko teased, flashing her mischievous grin. "Maybe we've just got a strong group this year," Ibiki replied dryly. "Sure, if you say so," she chuckled. "But no worries. By the time I'm through, we'll be cutting that number in half, at least." She turned toward the group. "All right, little shinobi. Be at Training Ground 44, also known as the Forest of Death, tomorrow morning at 9 sharp, or you're out." One by one, the participants began to exit the classroom, except for Naruko, who strolled over to the pair with a wide smile on her face. "Nice to see you again, Anko," Naruko said warmly, unfazed by Anko's fierce reputation. "Same to you, Gaki," Anko replied cheerfully. "Get some rest tonight, the next test's going to be tough." "Sounds like fun. By the way, I left a note in the exam paper, make sure to read it, Scarface," she added playfully, before leaping out the window. Ibiki's brow twitched at the nickname, while Anko laughed at Naruko's antics. "She got you good, Scarface," Anko said, clearly amused. "Your friend's quite the character," Ibiki muttered. He paused, noting the faintest trace of a blush forming on Anko's cheeks. "Anko, are you blushing?" he asked with a teasing smirk. "And no. What makes you think that?" She quickly deflected. "Anyway, didn't she say there was a message for you?" Curious, Ibiki walked over to the desk and picked up Naruko's test. Attached to it was a hastily drawn seal labeled, "For Scarface." Another twitch. Suppressing the urge to tear the paper in half, he instead applied a small pulse of chakra to the seal. Instantly, it came to life, forming strands of ink that snaked across the paper until they reshaped themselves into a legible message. Dash. To Ibiki Morino, head of the Anbu Interrogation Division. Regarding a possible infiltrator. The Genin Kabuto, silver hair, wears glasses, is acting as a spy for Orochimaru. I detected the scent of snakes on him, an aura that only 2 individuals in the village carry, Anko Mitarashi and Orochimaru himself. He also possesses highly classified information, details only available to the Hokage and myself. Specifically, data from the aftermath of Mizuki's betrayal, which is restricted to those cleared for A-rank missions. These files are stored in the Hokage Tower and should be inaccessible to him. Anko Mitarashi can confirm the signature snake scent. Naruko Uzumaki. Dash. Ibiki's eyes widened. The logic was sound, and the supporting evidence compelling. "Anko," he called. "What did the Gaki write? We may have a spy in our ranks." Dash. 12 a.m., Hall of Records, Hokage Tower. Kabuto Yakashi moved quietly through the archive room, avoiding patrols with practiced ease. Using a controlled glow of chakra, he scanned through classified folders, swiftly copying sensitive information onto a scroll. He had nearly finished when he felt the faintest tap on his neck. Everything went dark. Dash. 1:30 a.m., rooftop of the Hokage Tower. Hiruzen Sarutobi watched the village under the soft veil of rain. From his vantage point, the quiet city below brought a calming sense of reflection. He remembered his past, his students, his own mentors, and the long years of duty. He looked down at his hands, seeing in them both strength and the weight of time. "Hokage-sama," an Anbu agent spoke behind him. "Yes?" The Hokage responded without turning. A spy was apprehended inside the Hall of Records by Anko Mitarashi and Ibiki Morino. Genin Naruko Uzumaki provided the tip. Interrogation is currently underway. "Very well. Keep me informed." "Hi." The Hokage remained on the rooftop, lost in thought. Though his face remained calm, his eyes burned with renewed purpose. Dash. 1:45 a.m., Uzumaki residence. A loud exclamation echoed inside Naruko's now well-kept apartment. Months ago, it was barely inhabitable. Thanks to her mission pay and advanced knowledge of sealing techniques, it had become a warm and organized home. Naruko sat by the window, reading a complex scroll on sealing methods. Dressed in a comfortable robe, she sipped tea from a small cup. Her arms, marked with intricate seals resembling artistic tattoos, rested on the book. "This is strange," she murmured. "The author's logic mirrors my own. These notes feel like they were written for me." She closed the book, puzzled, just as a soft knock came from the door. Curious, she set the scroll aside and went to answer. Outside stood Anko Mitarashi, looking worn and weary. "Hey, kid. Saw your lights on. Mind if I come in?" "Of course," Naruko smiled. "Come in." She noticed the faint stains on Anko's clothing but didn't comment. Instead, she offered a kind "make yourself at home," and headed into the kitchen. Anko took a seat, taking in her surroundings. The apartment reflected Naruko's intellect and dedication. Books lined the shelves, most of them on chakra theory, medical practice, sealing techniques, and herbalism. At one end of the room sat a workspace filled with scrolls and tools, including several protected potted plants surrounded by chakra seals. She was drawn from her thoughts by Naruko's voice. "Tea or something a little stronger?" Naruko asked from the kitchen. "Sake," Anko replied, her curiosity now replaced with exhaustion. Naruko returned with a bottle and 2 saucers. "How long have you been running without rest?" 2 days, Anko admitted with a sigh. "You need to rest," Naruko said gently, placing the sake aside. "You're staying here tonight." Anko gave her a skeptical look, but Naruko was already leading her to the bedroom. "You take the bed. I'll wake you early enough for the exam." Just before Naruko left the room, Anko spoke softly, "Thank you." Naruko smiled and made her way to the couch. Setting an early alarm, she allowed herself to drift into sleep as well. 8:45 a.m., entrance to Training Ground 44, Forest of Death. The morning was cool, the rain having stopped during the night. Naruko arrived early and observed the other teams. The teams from the Mist and Rain villages wore smug expressions, clearly pleased by the residual dampness in the terrain. Naruko ran a quick mental scan, noticing the presence of high-grade storage scrolls and equipment on some of the competitors. One brown-haired girl caught her attention. Her attire, a red Chinese-style shirt and short pants, suggested speed and agility. Naruko noted her cautiously, recognizing talent and preparedness. Nearby, Sakura chatted with Ino, Shikamaru rested under a tree, and Sasuke gave his gear a final check. Naruko took a moment to relax, sharpening a senbone between her fingers in quiet focus. Eventually, Anko appeared at the gate, accompanied by a team of Chunin. Her energy was high, and the sharp smile she wore made more than a few Junon nervous. "That woman is intense," Sasuke commented. "Only if you get on her bad side," Naruko responded calmly, earning a small smirk from Sasuke. The stage was set. The next test was about to begin. The atmosphere was far from cheerful. The young ninja present for the Chunin exams tensed as the proctor, Mitarashi Anko, made her entrance. Most of them appeared quite nervous, although Naruko had a hard time holding back a chuckle at the reaction of the other participants. Anko's dramatic explanation of the challenges ahead in the forest almost seemed like a theatrical performance meant for her amusement. Once Anko wrapped up her vivid descriptions, a Chunin accompanying her stepped forward with a large stack of documents. "All right, everyone, welcome to the second stage of the Chunin exams," Anko said with an enthusiastic grin. "This phase is a survival challenge. You have 5 days to make your way to the tower at the center of the Forest of Death. However," she paused for effect, "you need to bring a complete set of scrolls, 1 heaven scroll and 1 earth scroll. Each team will start with only 1, and you won't know who is which. Make it to the tower with all 3 team members and both scrolls within 5 days, or you're disqualified. If you lose a teammate or open the scrolls prematurely, you're out." 5 days? An incredulous ninja from the rock village exclaimed. "What about food?" asked Kuji, still chewing on his favorite barbecue chips. "There's plenty of edible wildlife. That's why it's called a survival test," Anko replied, her smirk never leaving her face. Naruko stifled a laugh as Ino gently nudged Kuji and called him silly for worrying about food, not realizing how crucial that detail actually was. "Do we have a plan?" Sasuke whispered from under a tree, his gaze scanning the area. "Not exactly," Naruko replied. "But I think we should prepare traps near the tower and deal with other teams there." "Not a bad idea, Dobi," Sasuke responded, nodding approvingly. Naruko closed her eyes and leaned back, recalling her training with the spirit fox sealed within her. Her skills had advanced significantly, particularly in chakra control. While the sword techniques she'd developed were impressive, what truly mattered now was managing the chakra of the fox inside her. Gaara was similar in some ways, but something about him felt unpredictable. Sasuke, she called, drawing his attention. She rarely used his name unless it was important. Yeah? We should steer clear of the sand team, she said firmly. While Sasuke trusted her instincts, it still bothered him that Naruko often withheld key information. What, are you nervous about the redhead? He teased lightly. Naruko turned sharply, her bright blue eyes glinting with a steely seriousness. Sasuke immediately dropped his tone. They're strong. That's all I'll say, she replied simply, then went quiet. Sasuke gave a short nod. He didn't fully understand, but he respected Naruko's intuition. The Chunin eventually arrived to collect forms, handing 2 sheets to each team. Safety waivers? Naruko read aloud, letting out a laugh. Around her, others exchanged nervous glances. Across the field, near the perimeter fence, Anko overheard Naruko's laughter and smiled. She was already looking forward to watching the whole ordeal unfold from the tower's observation room. Whoever installed those cameras was a genius, she thought, reaching for her bowl of popcorn. As the noise from the crowd grew, Anko's mood shifted. All right, settle down. Get your forms signed and trade them in for your scrolls so we can begin. The Genin followed her instructions quickly, signing the forms and entering a tent in groups to receive their scroll. The inside was completely concealed, ensuring that no one could tell which scroll each team received. Team 7 approached their designated gate, Gate 41. As Naruko observed, gate was a generous term for a simple stretch of fence marked with a red number plate. Naruko glanced at her teammates. Sakura had made visible progress over the past month. Though she still admired Sasuke, she had begun taking her training seriously, and her growth was apparent. Sasuke, while still determined to confront his older sibling, had become more approachable. He even appreciated Naruko's occasional pranks now, which surprised everyone. She recalled fondly how she once painted the Hokage monument, managing to evade a full team of elite Anbu operatives afterward. Maybe, when this was all over, she'd plan another harmless prank. Suddenly, a flare shot up near the main gate. Taking it as the signal to begin, Team 7 leapt over the fence. The second stage of the Chunin exams had officially started. Meanwhile, Sakura Haruno was feeling unusually optimistic. She had woken up early, enjoyed a warm shower, and eaten a solid breakfast. Her recent training with the help of her mother, a retired ninja, had given her confidence. Today, she felt prepared, not only to contribute to her team but to finally earn Sasuke's respect. Unfortunately, she had no idea the day was about to become much more difficult. Inside the tower at the center of the forest, the observation room buzzed with activity. Several Jounin sensei were gathered with Anbu operatives and the proctors, Ibiki Morino and Anko Mitarashi. Anko, though technically not a full Jounin, was widely respected for her skills in stealth, intelligence gathering, and interrogation. She now sat with a bowl of popcorn and another filled with betting slips. 1,000 on Guy's team, one said. 500 on the Sand siblings, added another. 250 on Kurenai's team. Bets continued, yet every pair of eyes remained locked on the screen showing various parts of the forest. One screen captured the first clash of the exam. On the eastern side of the forest, Team 10 found themselves in trouble. Shikamaru was evading a storm of senbone needles aimed with precision. Why do we always get the tough ones? He thought with a sigh, glancing back at his teammates. Huji had taken a minor hit, and Ino was focused on blocking a kunai aimed at Shikamaru. Come up with something, genius, Ino shouted while parrying. Yeah, working on it, Shikamaru muttered, checking his pouch. That should be enough. Ino, draw away the one with the odd mask. Huji, you're with me. Let's go. The three split up instantly. Ino's POV. Over here, mask face. She called, waving her arms. In response, the Rain Ninja created 4 clones and dashed toward her. You're not getting away, he said confidently as 2 clones charged from the front, the others from above. Clones. But where's the real one? Not in front. Not above. Wait, behind. Spinning quickly, Ino barely avoided the incoming strike. She felt a sharp sting on her shoulder but responded swiftly, slamming the base of her kunai into the assailant's shoulder. The sudden nerve hit caused him to drop unconscious. Lucky shot, she thought, breathing out as she checked his gear. No scroll. Regaining her focus, she dashed back to her teammates. Shikamaru and Kuji. The two stood back to back, fending off their attackers. Ready? Shikamaru asked, parrying another strike. Always, Kuji responded with a grin. A small explosion echoed, and a cloud of smoke burst around them. Aiza, do you see them? One of the enemies called. Silence. Aiza? She's not available, came a calm voice. A streak of shadow darted toward him. Shadow possession jutsu, success. Now, Kuji. Before the rain ninja could respond, he saw a massive fist flying toward him, and then everything went black. Back at the observation tower. Not bad, Asuma. Your students seem to have a solid grasp of their training, Anko commented as she watched Team 10 on the monitors. They even managed to acquire both scrolls. Still, they overlooked tying up the opposing ninja and didn't secure much equipment besides the scroll. Asuma casually took a draw from his cigar, deliberately ignoring Kurenai's disapproving glare from his right. He exhaled slowly, pretending not to notice. Hey, look over there, one of the jounin said, pointing at a screen showing the southern sector of the Forest of Trials. Another engagement, Kakashi noted idly, concealing a pleased smile beneath his mask. His team was involved in the skirmish, and he couldn't help but feel a touch of pride. Anko grinned mischievously as she recognized the familiar figure of Naruko Uzumaki on the screen. This should be interesting, she murmured. Southern region of the Forest of Trials, Team 7. I still don't understand how that team managed to pass the academy, Naruko whispered to Sakura as the three of them observed a squad from the newly formed Sound Village. Naruko vaguely remembered that 2 teams from that village were participating in the exams. This one seemed less experienced. The 3 sound ninjas moved cautiously through the forest, but their guard was clearly down. They didn't notice their chakra trail being tracked. Alright, sit back and relax, Naruko said with a confident grin. You both handled the last 2 teams. This one's mine. Sakura and Sasuke exchanged glances and shook their heads, but let her proceed. Show off, Sasuke muttered as Sakura nodded quietly. Naruko ignored them. With a calm focus, she prepared 3 senbon needles and closed her eyes. Ninja art, hidden mist jutsu, she whispered. A dense mist rolled through the forest, reducing visibility and masking her movements. Naruko had grown fond of the stealth techniques she learned from observing Zabuza. She unfastened her red trench coat for easier movement and carefully cushioned her steps with chakra, gliding silently through the haze. The sound ninjas began to panic. The chakra-infused mist was thick, and none of them could see beyond the person next to them. Their leader hastily positioned them in a triangular formation, trying to cover all angles. Naruko stood silently, her posture eerily reminiscent of a master assassin. With a steady breath, she applied a mild paralysis agent to the senbon needles. She studied their formation carefully, noting weaknesses. She picked up a small stone and tossed it in the opposite direction from where she intended to strike. It worked, the sound ninjas turned instinctively toward the noise. In that moment, she struck. 2 needles flew through the air, hitting pressure points on the necks of 2 of the opponents. They slumped to the ground, unconscious. A 3rd needle followed immediately, rendering the last one unconscious as well. Before their bodies fully hit the ground, Naruko swiftly retrieved the senbon. The paralytic effect would render them unconscious for several hours. She buttoned up her coat and released the mist, which quickly dispersed into the night air. Sasuke and Sakura watched in awe as Naruko stood confidently over the now unmoving forms of the sound team, unharmed and victorious. She held up a scroll marked heaven with a triumphant smile. Well, that's one more task completed. Are they hurt? Sakura asked cautiously, still adjusting to the challenges of field missions. No, just temporarily unconscious, Naruko replied. Let's keep moving. It's best not to draw attention. Back at the tower. The observation room was quiet. All eyes were fixed on the monitor. Just moments earlier, the sound team had been on screen. Then the mist rolled in, followed by the soft thuds of falling bodies. When the fog cleared, Naruko stood at the center, completely unharmed and successful in her mission. What exactly are you teaching that young kunoichi, Kakashi? Kurenai asked, her voice still touched with surprise. I simply offered her a few strategies, Kakashi replied discreetly with a calm smile beneath his mask. Anko paused just long enough to grab a handful of popcorn, thoroughly entertained. Even Iviki's faint grin hinted at a rare approval. Their attention was soon drawn away when an Onbu agent approached Anko. Anko-san, there's something you need to see, he whispered urgently. Understood. Lead the way, she responded, following him out of the room. Nightfall in the forest. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the sounds of daytime gave way to nocturnal creatures, owls, crickets, and rustling in the underbrush. Team 7 had set up a small, well-hidden campsite near a stream, with traps strategically placed by Naruko and Sakura, while Sasuke prepared their shelter and food. Naruko was genuinely impressed by Sakura's clever trap ideas. "Didn't think you had a knack for setting traps," Naruko said with a chuckle. "It's not that hard," Sakura replied with a modest smile. "Not hard?" Naruko blinked. "Some of your designs are better than the ones I made for my apartment, and I spent days working on those. You've got talent, you just need some field experience." Nearby, Sasuke finished preparing dinner from ingredients Naruko had unsealed earlier. Years of independence had made him a competent cook. The fire was carefully built to avoid smoke, and a simple, nutritious stew simmered gently over it. They shared a quiet meal, staying alert even as they relaxed. Afterward, Sasuke and Naruko laid down to sleep, leaving Sakura on first watch. 8 hours later. "Time for your shift, Naruko," Sasuke said, gently nudging her awake. Naruko groaned softly and rose from her sleeping bag. She was used to sleeping in her clothes, so there was little adjustment needed. Buttoning up her red coat, she stepped into her role. She quickly summoned 10 shadow clones, transforming them into small forest creatures and spreading them throughout the area for surveillance. She then unsealed a scroll, took out some jutsu notes, and settled down to read. The hours until dawn were few, but something about the night felt unusually still. She glanced toward her teammates. Sakura slept peacefully, but Sasuke was clearly awake. "Can't sleep?" Naruko asked softly. "Yeah," Sasuke replied. Since the night Naruko caught him after a nightmare, he hadn't quite been the same. He had seen something in her eyes that night, something raw and human. "What does it feel like?" Naruko asked gently. "To have a family?" Sasuke sat up and leaned against a tree. His expression was solemn. "Safe. Loved. Cared for. I don't know how else to describe it." Naruko smiled faintly, and for a moment, the forest was silent again. "Hey, Naruko," Sasuke said suddenly. "Why do some of the villagers treat you so differently?" Naruko's posture tensed slightly. "I've heard the names they call you. Monster. And worse. Does it have anything to do with something sealed?" She took a deep breath, then nodded. "Come on. I'll explain, but this isn't the place." She led him to the stream and activated a privacy seal to ensure their conversation wouldn't be overheard. "What I'm about to tell you is an S-class secret. If you repeat it without permission from me or the Hokage, the consequences are serious. Understood?" Sasuke nodded solemnly. "You know about the 9-tailed fox that attacked the village 14 years ago? The one the 4th Hokage defeated?" "Partly true," Naruko said. "The tailed beasts can't be destroyed by ordinary means. So, the 4th sealed it away inside a newborn." "You?" Sasuke asked quietly. "Yes. That's why the villagers look at me that way. Why I was always alone." Naruko's voice softened. "I've spent most of my life trying to earn their acceptance." Sasuke's expression turned thoughtful. "And here I thought my situation was difficult." Naruko smiled faintly. "It's been tough, but I'm still here." Sasuke's thoughts drifted. He had always been praised by the village. Meanwhile, Naruko had endured so much in silence. She had shown strength not just in battle, but in heart. He realized that Naruko was not only his rival but perhaps his first true friend. As Naruko turned off the privacy seal and returned to her scroll, Sasuke went back to sleep. Naruko, though appearing to study, was deep in thought. From within her mind, she heard a familiar voice. "Feeling nostalgic, are we?" She smiled subtly but said nothing. It had been quite a while since Naruko had sat down to have a serious talk with her inner tenant. "There really isn't much to discuss these days," Kurama began, voice casual. "Though we could start that new training, if you're interested." The idea alone sent a nervous shiver through Naruko's spine. "After the exam, okay? I'd rather stay in one piece for now." Kurama chuckled softly at her remark. The great fox had a habit of teasing Naruko, and he took clear joy in it. Deciding it was best to focus while she had the time, Naruko redirected her attention to the detailed theory behind a new jutsu she had been studying. Elsewhere, Anko stood frozen in alarm, eyes locked on the unsettling sight in front of her. 3 ninja from the grass village lay still, clearly victims of poison. Their faces were missing, concealed under illusion or removed through strange means. Her expression tightened, She knew there was only one person capable of such a thing. Hawk, find the Hokage and let them know Orochimaru is here. Also, send an Anbu tracking unit. He's in the forest and on the move. Yes, Hawk responded quickly before vanishing to carry out the order. Anko whispered through clenched teeth, why now? Back in the forest, Naruko felt a pulse of chakra and instinctively flinched. One of her perimeter shadow clones had dispelled itself, delivering important information. A single grass shinobi moving quickly. Chakra signature similar to Anko's. Suppressed to mid-level. Faint scent of snakes. The meaning of the warning raced through Naruko's mind, summarized in a single thought, this is serious. She quickly moved toward Sasuke and Sakura, who were still asleep. Moments later, she and two of her clones lifted them and took off toward the tower. As they bounded through the trees, Sakura stirred. Ugh! Naruko? What's going on? She asked, still groggy. Naruko kept her eyes forward, focused and calm. Unknown individual approaching. Chakra appears to be suppressed. Most likely associated with Orochimaru. And they might be targeting one or all of us. That got everyone's attention. Each of them knew the name Orochimaru, an infamous figure known for causing trouble. Without needing further explanation, Sasuke and Sakura began moving on their own. Meanwhile, the clones split off, transformed to resemble the team, acting as decoys to distract any pursuers. The trio raced toward the tower in formation. Sasuke led with the Sharingan active, Sakura stayed in the center, and Naruko guarded the rear. Naruko's heart was pounding. She wasn't entirely sure if the threat was after Sasuke's Kekkei Genkai or the nine tails sealed within her. Either way, the safest choice was to avoid confrontation. Sakura might not be the primary target, but danger could still follow them. Whoever it was, they were gaining. The clone that had dispelled only caught a vague shape, not a full view. Something felt off, almost like the person wasn't just using a transformation technique, it was more like they were wrapped in another layer entirely. Think, Naruko, she told herself. What did Anko say about Orochimaru's strange abilities? Before she could piece it together, the chakra presence behind them vanished, only to reappear directly ahead. Naruko came to a sudden stop. Her expression turned serious, prompting both Sasuke and Sakura to stop as well. What's wrong? Sakura asked. Naruko pointed toward a small clearing ahead, where a mysterious figure in a large straw hat stood waiting. Troublesome. Sasuke muttered, borrowing a phrase from their laid-back comrade Shikamaru. Across the clearing, Orochimaru stood quietly, observing the young team. He was irritated by the recent setbacks, especially Kabuto's failure, but he remained composed. Though the kunoichi Sakura Haruno posed no real interest to him, the other two were different. Naruko, with her remarkable stamina and sealing abilities, was certainly unique, especially with that sword strapped across her back. But he doubted he could ever gain control over the nine tails sealed inside her. That left Uchiha Sasuke, whose visual abilities were highly desirable. What do you think, Kurama? That definitely isn't a Genin, Naruko asked silently, hoping for some insight. He's not, the fox responded firmly. I recognize his presence. That person is not who they appear to be. Anko and her team of Anbu trackers raced through the forest at top speed, determined to locate and intercept her former mentor. The emotional energy surrounding her, grief, anger, fear, was palpable, causing even the Anbu to hesitate. But Anko's determination wasn't only fueled by vengeance, it was fear for Naruko. That child is in danger, she thought. Meanwhile, Naruko tried to stay composed. She didn't want to test fate by asking if the situation could get worse, it usually did when you did that. She wasn't paralyzed by fear, but every instinct in her screamed that they were in deep trouble. Then the shinobi across from them locked eyes. For a split second, Naruko's world shifted. A powerful illusion technique clouded her senses. In the vision, she saw herself fall, but then the scene faded. A genjutsu. She had broken free of it, though it left her rattled. The others were visibly shaken, too. Well. Looks like I caught a clever little fox, the disguised enemy said with an eerie, almost playful tone. Naruko didn't respond immediately. She needed to stall for time. Orochimaru was known to be overly confident, he often underestimated others. His chakra was still being hidden. Maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for a well-placed counterattack. I never thought the legendary Orochimaru would be out scouting young ninja, Naruko said calmly, trying to mask her tension. The enemy chuckled. You saw through my little illusion. I'm impressed. And you have a sense of humor too. That should make this game all the more interesting. All three young ninja prepared for a confrontation as Orochimaru's hands began to move through a sequence of seals. Here we go, Naruko thought, bracing herself. Things were about to get much more complicated. Dear YouTube family. That's a wrap for now. As always, thank you for walking this path with me. If the journey spoke to you, like, share, and subscribe. Your support fuels the next adventure. Until our paths cross again. Stay bold, stay curious, and never stop chasing your legend. With respect. 6 Path Weeb.